All right, fantastic. We're recording. Welcome, Phil Tataurangi. Great to have you with us. Professional golfer.
Lovely to be you too, Leah.
Professional golfer, course designer, TV presenter. That's quite a impressive resume you've got going there, Phil. And I'm looking forward to drilling down on each aspect of that. But I've got to be honest with you right now, probably the most intimidating thing you've done is TV presenter. as I hopefully steer you and shepherd you through this interview that we have here today. So be kind, Phil. And
you too. As you're describing that, I was thinking, this sounds like an Irishman joke, is what this sounds like. There was a TV presenter and a golf course designer and a professional golfer sitting in a pub, and they were talking to them.
So this interview is largely to connect with our members and our friends at Tataurangi Beach, but also it's an opportunity for us to reconnect with a golfer that's had a great affinity with Tataurangi Beach over the years, and we're looking forward to hearing your journey, where golf's taken you, and hopefully how Tataurangi Beach has helped you grow that love for the game. So, Phil, first off, how's the lockdown bubble? How's the Tataurangi bubble going?
Yeah, no, we're good, Leo. We're very lucky, very grateful for having a bit of space, and the two teenage kids and a 19-year-old son who has turned our place into a golf course during the lockdown, and a 15 coming up 16-year-old daughter who has been doing schoolwork actually most of the time. So she's been behind a screen or hasn't been quite as I guess luxurious with the sleeping in and chilling out as the rest of us have been. But so she's on holiday now, and my wife, she doesn't mind spending a bit of time in the kitchen, but it seems like through the lockdown she's spent bugger all time anywhere else other than the kitchen, because the ability to snack through this period of time has been mastered. I can admit to that.
The kitchen's been a busy place, hasn't it? The dishwasher's going on a couple of times a day. I mean, I suspect we're going to save a lot of money in terms of fuel, but we're probably going to spend it on electricity and food.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the food bill's gone up. We haven't gone hungry, and it's been good actually. Been great. Look, you're never going to put your hand up. No one's going to put their hand up and say that going through this is what people would have preferred. But I think there are going to be some really positive things that come out of it. Yes, there are going to be people that have lost their jobs, and the golf industry is going to change completely. But hopefully, families have got to spend a little bit more time with each other. I think for working parents, hopefully they've got to spend a little bit more time with kids. I know I have, there's always that list around the house, Leo, where a husband can defer, he can procrastinate, but then when you have this sort of period of time, that list catches up on you. So there's been a bit of time doing that as well.
I saw something online that suggested that I couldn't do housework, I couldn't do those chores because I just never had the time. And now I've got the time, I realise I actually just didn't want to do them.
Yeah, just didn't want to do them. Yeah. I've enjoyed doing some of them. There have been some that I've continued to try and procrastinate around, and now with a bit of luck and touching wood, we might be seeing the end of potentially when a level 4 level shutdown might be coming to the end of that. And now all of a sudden go like, oh, I've only got this length of time to get this list complete before we go somewhat back to normal. And so, let's keep our fingers crossed that life can return to normal for a number of people here coming up soon.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to that, absolutely. In the meantime, we're looking forward to hearing from you, Phil. And why don't we start from right back at the beginning? You're out of the Waitomo Golf Club, which has always fascinated me, to a point where actually last year I took a bit of a pilgrimage through the King Country into the southern Waikato to check out the home of Phil Tataurangi, the Waitomo Golf Club.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it's an interesting story, Leo. I don't want to bore people, but I got into golf because my dad, we lived out on the bottom of the Kawhia Harbour geographically. Small two-teacher school my mum and dad taught at Kinohaku. And so for Saturday morning sport, it was about nearly an hour's drive on a metal road into the grand metropolis of Tataurangi. And so at 7 years of age, I wasn't playing footy, but because we didn't have a school team and it was too far away to be in a club team. And my sister played some hockey and some netball. And so I was given that choice of going to watch my sister, who was 3 years older than me, watch her play sport, or go and caddy for dad at Waitomo. And I say to people I would rather poke my eyes out than go and watch my sister play sport. And so I ended up going and caddying for the old man, and I learnt some words that weren't so frequently thrown around the dinner table, shall we say, language that was a little colourful and a little different. And after a little while of caddying for dad, and he had some good friends that were single figure handicapper players and that sort of stuff, I got the pip with that and decided, bugger this, I'm going to take it up myself. And so Saturdays and some Sundays involved me jumping in the car with the old man at a fairly early hour and heading into Waitomo and playing golf, and maybe watching the 2:30 game on telly, and then maybe going out for another 9 holes before we headed home and getting home at dark.
Yeah. What age were you at that stage?
Yeah, 7, 8 years of age.
Yeah. And what was your first handicap? Like how quickly did you progress with the game? Was it a natural straight away, or?
My first handicap was 31, and that allowed me to go and play in some Waikato Junior Golfing Society days. There's only a couple of juniors at Waitomo at the time. It's not like they had a lot of kids floating around. And I was lucky, I guess, with not many kids in the club. I got to play with the adults pretty quickly. Some of those were the old ladies that I'd go and play with. And then when my handicap started coming down, I got to play with a lot of Dad's friends, as I said, with single figure handicap golfers. And so learning a little bit by osmosis, just by being around better players, and being a kid, you pick it up and turn your backyard. Mum and Dad were school teachers, so had a sports field to go and practice pitching and short irons on. And I really enjoyed it. I played a lot of sports at school, and enjoyed athletics and playing rugby and cricket and tennis and softball.
So your dad was a rugby player. Represented.
He did. Yeah, Dad played 90 odd games for Auckland through the 60s.
Wow.
And so he was kind of just half a step short of getting a black jersey. Got a Māori jersey and a juniors jersey in Colston University, etc. And so that was one thing that he kind of missed out on in his career, but that what it afforded him to do is to travel quite a bit around the countryside. And when my sister and I were born in Auckland, Mum and Dad, both being school teachers, decided that they thought they might want to bring their kids up in the country, and so we were the beneficiaries of Mum and Dad finding a country school, 2 teachers. Mum took the junior class and Dad took the senior class, and so we were out in the back blocks of the King Country for a handful of years before we moved into town just out of Te Awamutu at the end of the 70s, right around when I was about 9 or 10, and we felt like we were city slickers when we were only 10 minutes from town as opposed to an hour. Yeah. And there was a whole sealed road between there and town. And that's when I played at a 9-hole golf course at Puahui for about 4 or 5 years, which was like having my own private little golf course, really. Fences around the greens, sheep on the fairways. We're all familiar with the little 9-hole courses around the countryside. Golf holes that there's no way that if you're building a proper course or a big course, you design golf holes like it or put greens in the locations like it. But great way to invent shots, create shots. Try and play them through the gate and over the fence, and not hit the wire and bounce it and off a bit of sheep shit and triggle it onto the green, and have pin placements on a slope of about 7 or 8% because the greens weren't overly fast, and so you had all this this sort of playground to fall in love with the game. And golf course certainly wasn't overpopulated, and if I felt like playing 3 rounds in one day and going around this 9-hole course 6 times, then there was pretty much nothing stopping you. So that was a perfect playground to develop my game, get my handicap down to single figures, and then kind of get to the stage of figuring out, jeepers, if I'm going to play some representative golf, then I most probably needed to play senior pennants. And that's right around when I was about 12 or 13, I got to play some senior pennants for Waitoma.
Yeah, right. That's
it. So that was a bit of a growing up, getting to play that sort of representative golf, club representative golf, and being around adults the entire time, and playing match play against adults as a kid at that age. You learned a few things about people.
Yeah.
Some of them were positive, and some of them were learning opportunities. And so I grew up, in some respects, I grew up pretty quickly, just spending that much time around adults at golf courses.
Was becoming a professional golfer always the end game? I mean, did you zero in on that from a very early age? Was it something that kind of took priority over other aspects of your life or other sporting interests?
Not until my late teenage years, really, Leo. I never really knew how good you needed to be. We didn't have Sky back in those days. You didn't, we watched the 4 majors on TV1 in the middle of the night, usually. And I did remember writing to Jack Nicklaus. It would have been after the 78 or 79 US Open, and getting a letter back from him, and mementos from Muirfield Village, and so that was pretty cool. But that was just me being a kid. I didn't have any aspirations to play professional golf, because I didn't know what the hell that was, and I didn't know how good you needed to be. We only had really one professional golfer of note, Sir Bob Charles, and a few others that used to play on different tours around the world, but not they weren't blasted across our screen or in the newspaper every week. And so I didn't know how to even go about that, and so I didn't think that would be my path until maybe later in my teenage years, where you're just a bit more exposed to the game at the highest level and what the possibilities might be if you stuck with it.
At what stage did you first represent New Zealand?
I played some junior representative stuff, under 18, that sort of stuff. Actually, with Doug Sanders just passing away, my first trip overseas was to the Doug Sanders International in Australia when I was 15, and then some senior representative stuff later on that year, really. Yeah, just when I just turned 16.
It's kind of interesting these days with your kids, and you hear about and you see it actually around the course. We want to vicariously live through our children, and you want to have tennis rackets and golf clubs and rugby balls in their hands really fast, and you see these young prodigies getting driven quite firmly. Was your parents? It sounds like you were doing your own driving. You were taking yourself out and playing golf on a regular basis and repetitive basis, rather than being told to go out and do that.
Yeah, you're right about that, Leo. I loved playing sport, and it was a bit of an escape, because it meant that if the more sport I played, there was less time to have to do homework. And I tried pulling that one on. Mum, Dad understood, but Mum wasn't going for it, and so had to find a little bit of time to do some schoolwork. But so that was my theory. I didn't quite get away with it. But yeah, look, I loved it. I loved playing golf, and mostly loved it too much, to be fair, to the point where I gave up playing other sports at a young age, and I regret that now. Yeah. I do. I wish I'd kept on playing cricket. I couldn't play rugby. I had nephritis, had a kidney condition, and so I just stopped playing rugby when it started becoming a little bit more physical. And so I couldn't play rugby, and so I played tennis and played softball and did a lot of athletics, and golf was still my number one passion by all means, but I mostly zeroed in on it a bit too early, and that was more my own doing. I loved it so much that my mum and dad had to yank me off the golf course and stop me from practicing, rather than the other way around. And I know there's some cases where parents are maybe doing a bit more of the driving of the kid as opposed to the kid controlling their schedule. And I mostly put some of the injuries later in my career down to spending so much time hitting balls or practicing or playing at those ages where I was doing a lot of growing and developing, and my body got just a little bit out of whack, and consequently I think I built some patterns in those development stages of my career that became a little bit more difficult to unravel later on in my golfing career.
So move forward to 1988, and it's actually not too far forward, because you must still have been very young then when you teed up in the New Zealand Open at Tataurangi Beach. 1988 was my first memory of the New Zealand Open. I lived not too far away from here, but I remember going up and watching Ian Stanley win that particular year. You won the Bledisloe Cup that year for the leading amateur, which is how old would you have been?
17. Yeah.
Did you have to qualify? Did you have to go to Waikanae the Monday before to qualify to get into it? What was your pathway to get into it?
I think I was in the Eisenhower earlier that year, or maybe it made it into the national team, and so I think that might have been my exemption.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's your memories? I mean, 17, teeing it up in the New Zealand Open.
Yeah, it was a golf course I hadn't played before, but had heard a lot about, and so I was keen to go and learn it and figure it out, and the void of links style golf in New Zealand meant that you didn't have too many courses to compare it to, or to practice different kind of shots on. And I guess I was fortunate that week that the weather was relatively kind, and which meant I didn't have to learn a different style of golf so much to do well. I can't remember what I shot, but I can remember
288. So
yeah, okay.
I think so 74, 75, 73, 74, kind of each of the four rounds. It was
Yeah, I mean, I remember learning a lot that week, and just being in the environment of professional golf, full stop, and playing in, I think it was my first New Zealand Open. You're exposed to some of the better players in this region of the world, and so that was a big learning experience. In reflection, I realised that I needed to learn a few different shots to play links golf well, and to play in the wind, and to be able to control your ball flight, and
what about controlling your nerves? I mean, as a 17-year-old, and I know you wouldn't have had the biggest galleries sitting around you, but you're still teeing it up in a national open. There's no putting a circle around your card. It's every shot counts. And I guess this goes for the remainder of your career as well. How you actually dealt with nerves and teeing it up in front of crowds and the like.
Yeah, nerves were more from excitement than being concerned about people watching you play. I was a bit of a show off as a kid, so if people were watching you play, then they I guess I was excited by that, and realised later in my career how much of a privilege that is, of course, that people would come to watch you play sport for a living. So I can't remember at a young age there feeling nervous about that. Most definitely excited, and I remember playing on the last day. I think I played well on the last day, and coming up the 18th hole, and in some respects you could draw a parallel as a 17-year-old in New Zealand playing in a national open. It was like, imagine this is what this feels like. Imagine what it feels like walking down the last hole at the Open.
Yep.
And grandstands around and crowds and the claret jug on the line. That would be really cool. And so it was more absorbing all of that and looking forward. As a 17-year-old, most of the time you're looking forward, right? You're not thinking about what just happened or what you're worried about screwing up. You're thinking about the graph's going this way.
Yeah, look, not every 17-year-old. So
no,
yeah.
no, but that's kind of what it was for me, and so I didn't generally have too much trouble with controlling my nerves at that stage, and they were there, but they were more out of how cool is this? This is exciting. This is what I play and practice for, to actually put myself in these situations and see how I do.
So 93, you won the Bledisloe Cup again at Tataurangi Beach when Peter Fowler won it with a similar score. But I guess it was the year just prior to that where you were absolutely catapulted up onto the world stage, and probably one of the most dramatic ways with the Eisenhower Trophy. Incredible opportunity, obviously an incredible vision by Grant Clements, and a culmination of a plan that he had set for that whole team. I mean, talk us through that whole experience.
Yeah, it was. I certainly didn't understand it at the time, just how much it meant to a number of people, and I think in the years after that, certainly when coming back to New Zealand, I realised that sort of achievement, a lot of people were invested in it. And when you're a little naive, you're a little young, and you're just playing golf, and it's a stepping stone to getting to the next stage. Maybe you didn't truly appreciate it and really soak it in. But look, I basically shouldn't have even been on the team, to be fair. I had an elbow injury, a displacement of the ulnar nerve, and had surgery about 14 months before the tournament, and that required me to have 3 months away from playing golf. And then when I came back, I was only worth about $2.50. I was bugger all, and so a fair bit of work went into trying to get my game back competitive again, even though I was kind of still around the high performance squad, as they would call it nowadays, the Titleist Academy, I think it was back then. There were other players that were playing better than I was, and for Cambo and Grant Moorhead and Scarsy, they mostly picked themselves on their performances over a long period of time, and there was maybe one spot up for grabs, and a couple of things just started to turn the corner. My dad passed away, Leo, 2 years prior to the Eisenhower, just before the Eisenhower in Christchurch in 1990.
Yep.
And I was denying myself a chance to grieve that, and so that meant me bottling up quite a few things, and just I wasn't dealing with them, and consequently, not my golf game was going backwards, and I was at a bit of a crossroads. I was in my teenage years. What the hell was I going to do? I intended on going to university in the States right before Dad passed away, and then I was doing a bit of part-time work. I was trying to do some studies, and I was a bit all over the show, to be fair. And and so just this caught up with a really good friend in Hamilton, and just kind of started talking things through, and just how much I miss my dad, and it just started taking a little bit of a weight off my shoulders, and there are a number of things that went into that, but things just started turning the corner, and I started playing just a little bit better, and won a couple of tournaments, and I guess got myself in front of the selectors enough for them to make a decision and take a punt on me, and they did do that in the winter of that 92 year, and so from once I got selected in the team, which I thought was a pretty big achievement from where I was a few months prior to that. I knew the other guys were going to play well. Cambo had been playing great. Scarzy and Grant were winning just about every other amateur tournament there was in the country for the last previous 12 months. And so my goal was to try and beat all my teammates at Eisenhower. And if I could do that, then I was going to contribute as much as I possibly could to the team by playing that well. And if I did that, and knowing how well they had played, it was most probably going to give us a really good chance of winning. And so my goal was to try and be the low individual that week, and to try and beat all my teammates in the process of doing so. And
so
blow me down if it didn't pan out that way.
So you were the low individual, and obviously the team did win. And I mean, put that into context. Who were some of those players that you were playing against that year? I mean, who were some of the Americans in the team?
Yeah, David Duval and Justin Leonard were the two young guys. At that time, the US had a policy that they had 2 college players that would make the team, and then there were 2 career amateurs. And so the older guys were Jay Siegel and Alan Doyle, who would go on to play the Champions Tour later in their careers. And Messieurs Leonard and Duval most surely don't need too much introducing, so they had pedigree. But there were, I haven't spent too much time actually since going back through that field, but there are a number of very successful professionals from a number of different nations that were playing that year that went on to have winning careers on both the European Tour and Japanese Tour and Australasia and in the US.
So in terms of career back at that stage, doing that on the world stage, did that lead to, I don't know, people floating around in the background offering opportunities, scholarships perhaps opening up, or equipment companies? I mean, how does that, or how did it all work back in those days?
Yeah, yes is the short answer to that. And I need to come home from the Eisenhower and kind of take a look in the mirror and figure out, okay, well, what path am I going to take here? And ultimately, I decided, no, look, even though we'd done well that week and won the team competition or won the individual competition, still felt like there were things that I wanted to achieve in the amateur game, and so felt like and some development that needed to take place. I was, I needed to work on my game. I just needed to improve different facets of what I was doing. Need to grow up a little bit personally too, and so I remained amateur for another 12 months, or nearly 12 months, and the other 3 guys turned professional. And so a lot of different opportunities come at you when you're considering that turning pro phase, and certainly if you've done that on the back of some success. And so I know for Cambo and Scarzy and Grant, they went straight to the Australasian Tour, and they all kind of had some success early on, and were playing for money. And I came home and played the tower at Mount Wanganui, and so the next year though I played pretty much a professional looking career as an amateur. I played in a number of professional tournaments, some amateur tournaments. Big goal was to win the New Zealand Amateur, and that was at Namutu the following year. but kind of bridge that gap a little bit. I felt like the gap from where I was at and where my game was at and where I wanted to be at launching my professional career was just too wide. I needed to do a fair bit of learning, and so use that year to try and just get a whole heap more experience under my belt and enable me to make some decisions around agents, around sponsors, around what tour that I wanted to go and try and base myself on.
So that's interesting. Once you did make that decision, there's a couple of different ways you could obviously go. Well, a bunch of different ways, but I mean the main, the big light ones are the European or the US tour. Obviously, the US tour is probably the harder road. Well, I guess any tour is a tough road in itself, but the Kiwis that get through onto the US tour probably few and far between if we look at history. Yet that's the course that you set for yourself.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to play a little bit that 93 year amateur tournaments and professional tournaments, both in the US and in Europe. And so got to have a little bit more of a look at both of those tours and intended on going to both Q schools, actually, to be fair, and try and have a buck each way. And I was exempt on the Australasian tour, so by winning the New Zealand Amateur. So I had somewhere to play over the course of the summer, but wanted somewhere to play year round. And so that was my goal, was to try and get either on the European tour or the Challenge Tour or the PGA Tour or what was then the Nike Tour, and try and have somewhere to play through the winter months in New Zealand and then come back and play in New Zealand and Australia through the summer. And the route to go and play in the States was simple for me in the sense that, hey, look, if I want to end up playing there, I may as well go and figure out what it would take to get there. Not in a million years did I think that I was good enough to get through all the way, but if I was going to fail at some level, let me find out what that level was going to be and what I could go away, work on my game, and then come back and have another look at it at a different stage. And as things turned out, I managed to get through all three stages that first year. And in '94, I was the youngest member of the PGA Tour, just over 22 years old at the time, and hadn't played anywhere as a professional around the world other than a couple of Q schools. I'd ended up not going to the European Tour Q school because I made it all the way through to the finals of the US Tour school, which gave me some sort of status on either the Nike Tour or the PGA Tour. And so didn't end up going to the European Q school. And so I guess I fast-tracked some things by getting to the tour in my first year. But it was a really, really steep learning curve at the same time.
What did you find once you got there? I mean, I've heard, just for a start, the expense of being on tour must have been an absolute eye-watering experience in itself. But the day-to-day or the week-in, week-out grind, the professionalism required, I mean, how was all that for a little boy from the Waitomo Golf Club?
It wasn't a grind, for one thing, because now all of a sudden you're in that environment that you dreamt of playing in at some stage in your career, not next year. I mean, mum had only just got Sky on at home 12 months before, and so I couldn't see what I was actually trying to get myself into with the PGA Tour. I wrote away to the tour and asked them to send me a application form to the qualifying school, and that was, I filled in a couple of spots where the hell I didn't know those golf courses, and just kind of jumped in the deep end. And so that first year, I was lucky enough to have a management company that helped with some of the logistics of booking flights and hotels and where you're going and going about, just trying to tee it up on a Thursday. And I quickly learned that your performance from Thursday to Sunday is most of the time a reflection of what you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay. And so if you prepare well, if you you're organised, you're into town early, you know where you're going, it just kind of puts a lot of that those distractions to the side, so that when you turn up on Thursday, you're ready just to play golf. And so it took me all of that year to figure that out. And we made a whole heap of mistakes. My girlfriend at the time and my wife, we kind of figured some of those things out, just making those mistakes, staying in the wrong hotels, staying too far away from the course, through the summer, not knowing anything about scheduling, playing 8 tournaments in a row, all of these rookie mistakes that there's no way that you could. I guess I could have listened to some of the advice that I was getting, but there's no way you could really understand or comprehend the mistakes that you were making without making them to start off with.
So you arrived on the tour at the same time as Tiger Woods did, and I guess even in that space of time in the tour probably changed incrementally from what it had been prior to that. Did you ever get the chance to tee it up next to Tiger at all?
Yeah, no, I got to, but obviously when Steve started caddying for him, got to kick around a little bit. Then I only a couple of small practice rounds, not full 18-hole practice rounds, but then played in some tournament golf with Tiger throughout my career. But yeah, I mean, the few years that I was on tour before Tiger arrived, and then when Greg Norman was the number one player in the world, and was the gold standard as far as most things were concerned. There were the European Tour players around at the time, and other players that were considered they were winning major championships, etc. But Greg was set the standard in the gym and set the standard on the range, and largely set the standard at the end of each year with the money list as well. And then when Tiger came along, it was next level, the pandemonium, I guess, around the tour, and he instantly had success. And less than 6 or 7 months from turning professional, maybe it was 8 months or something from turning professional, he's won a green jacket, and that meant that things were just going to go crazy. Just totally exploded. And the tour that was up until that stage was the Innocence Tour, and then it just got exploited. We were all beneficiaries of it. Purses went up, crowd numbers went through the roof, endorsement income and opportunities for everybody, because they wanted to have a slice of those people that were in that environment.
Yeah. You mentioned the green jacket, and I see you got Arnold Palmer sitting over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Nice placement. So,
yeah.
His father, incidentally, was a greenkeeper. He's a good man.
He was too. That's right. Yep.
I've actually enjoyed. It's such a disappointment that the Masters wasn't able to go ahead this year. There's more important things in the world right now. But what it actually did do was give us the opportunity to watch a lot of those reruns, and I kind of reignited my. I've always loved the tournament, but in watching all those reruns, I actually understood why I loved the tournament. I loved the traditions. I loved all the perfection. I love the gentlemen and the way that the Masters and Augusta National just conduct themselves. Absolutely superb. I mean, you got the opportunity to play there. Talk us through that experience.
Yeah, phenomenal. Really, it's a bit of a career goal in the first place, to play all the major championships, try and have some success in them. And at that time, the getting into, in my career, getting into the Masters was a fairly set criteria. You either had to win on tour or finish inside the top 30 in the money list, and they weren't giving away spots, and so it came on the back of my win at Las Vegas and on the PGA Tour, and so I got a big fat check from it. I got a 2.5-year exemption from it. I got into Jack's tournament and Arnold's tournament, but ultimately the best prize for winning on tour is a trip to Augusta. And so I got a chance to plan ahead for that. When I say plan ahead was you get given eight tickets for each day. So Monday you get 8 tickets, Tuesday you get 8 tickets, Wednesday 8 tickets, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so distributing those to people, because that's like giving.
I was going to say, was the boy from Waitomo selling them out the back?
All of a sudden I had a lot of family members pop up that we're not family members, but wanted to introduce themselves as family members, and a whole heap of friends and people that been influential in me getting there, and so you want them to experience it as well. And so trying to corral all of those tickets out was and invite people was part of that experience. But then preparing to actually play the course, play the tournament, I wanted to get those first time nerves out of the way, and not have to deal with that all during tournament week. And so a month before the tournament, my Kiwi caddy, Brendan Woolley, who's a mastered in boy, actually whited up a boy, is caddying for me in the States. And so we planned a trip there prior to Bay Hill in March, so about a month or so before the tournament, and went, and there was about 20 members on property at the time, and had the golf course to yourself, and we could drive down Magnolia Lane a couple of times, and just go and enjoy the grounds, and learn the golf course a little bit, get some of those first time nerves out of the way, and take a whole heap of photos and send them to people and friends, and kind of get some of that pre-preparation that you'd normally do on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday out of the way, so that when I turned up tournament week, I could focus on trying to play the golf course and compete during the tournament. And we were able to do that a little bit. The 2003 year was not quite the Masters that you'd drawn up in your mind. It poured down with rain. We had Thursday round cancelled and ended up having to play off 2 tees, and the guy over my shoulder here, I got drawn with Arnold the first 2 days.
Oh, did you?
Was
that his last event, or?
It was supposed to be his last one. It was supposed to be his last one, but because of 2 tees, we finished on the 9th hole on Saturday morning to get 2 rounds in, and that's not the way that Augusta wanted to send Arnold off. Right. And so they talked him into coming back for a proper send off in 2004. So yeah, and that was cool. Getting to play the weekend was cool. Getting myself actually kind of on the edge of contention on Sunday afternoon was cool. And ultimately, I got tripped up by Augusta National when trying to press a little bit on the back nine. And
was it 10 or 11? Because obviously, nowadays we'd get more footage, but I remember you came off 9 and you were in reasonable shape, and then the board went up kind of 20 minutes later and you'd slipped a couple. Right? Is that?
Yeah, and I was actually just watching that the other day and just going through it with my son just for a bit of he was asking questions, and I remember coming through after 9 holes on the final day, and I was on the same score as a couple of guys that were on the bottom of the leaderboard, but my name wasn't there, and I think I was about five shots back at that time, and playing kind of nicely, and felt like if I could, shoot 4, 5, 6 under, 4, 5, 6 under or something on the back nine, that would be pretty cool. And hit it underneath, about 20 feet underneath the hole on 10. I hit it left of the pin on 11, had a 12-footer uphill, and hit it to about 15 feet on 12, and missed all 3 of them. And then was in the middle of the fairway on 13 of a little thin downhill lie, and most probably should have laid up, but I pressed, hit it in the tributary, and ended up making 6 at 13, and ended up spilling a couple of other shots coming down the stretch as well. But put it this way, I knew I was alive when playing 10, 11, 12. And I hit the shots that I wanted to hit to give myself opportunity of making birdies on the final day of the Masters to try and get myself in contention. I knew I was alive. Most definitely, it was the blood was pumping, the adrenaline was there, and being in that environment was something very, very cool. I didn't at all think that would be the last time that I would get that opportunity, unfortunately, and maybe didn't kind of soak it up quite as much as I should have.
So you say that was the last time. This is probably a good time to go into the injury, perhaps. You're playing Las Vegas, you're playing the Masters, and the career is going pretty good. We're all excited at home watching this Kiwi performing on the world stage, the US Tour, and then what happened?
Yeah, I got away from Augusta, and I was on pretty heavy doses of painkillers at the Masters that week, and I tweaked my back a couple of weeks after I won in Vegas in October of the previous year, into 2002. Got some treatment over that Christmas period back in New Zealand, and started out the 03 year, with a bit of an injury cloud, to be fair, and then it just started getting worse and worse and worse, and there's no way that I was not going to play the Masters. The Masters Committee don't take kindly upon just kind of putting your hand up and go, hey, can I roll this over to next year? My back's not feeling too flash. And so there was no way I wasn't going to play. And so I just had to try and find a pain medication that would allow me to get through. And I did that. And then there was a bit of a letdown at the back end of that, because that was a milestone that I needed to get through. I need to get through for me, but I need to get through it for all of the people in my support crew as well, because I wanted them to experience the week of the Masters. And then getting through that, I immediately knew that there was something not so flash with my back. It was pretty serious. And got an X-ray a couple of weeks after the Masters. Had a couple of weeks off, got an X-ray that confirmed a decent sized herniation, and tried to go about rehabbing that, and that was going backwards, and ultimately ended up having surgery. I think it was about 6 weeks after the Masters, and that's when I found out I had a fractured vertebrae. And so they didn't show up on the MRI. They ended up taking a fragment of a vertebrae out, and I recovered very quickly after that. But that was kind of the start of the dance that I did with my back, as far as surgeries and rehabs, and kind of occupied my next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I see. I mean, you played the USPGA that year as well, which that's reasonable recovery from back surgery to make it back.
Again, another really major championship. When I had the surgery, I was 13, 14 weeks out from the PGA, and at the time they said, you're going to be 3 months. I'm a surgeon in the States. You're going to be 3 months. So I always beat my rehabs and all the other injuries. I beat that, so I'm going to beat this. And so, as I said, I recovered well. Emotionally recovered too well, and I went out to play a tour event the week before, at about 11 weeks, I think, post surgery, and got through that no problem, and then got to the PGA and made it through the week, through to the weekend, and re-herniated on the Saturday morning when I was warming up, and that kind of shut me down for the rest of the year, and the start of the following year, actually. Yeah, end up having.
When did you actually retire off the tour and come back to New Zealand?
Yeah, I never used the retire word.
I mean, I see in your Wikipedia page it says semi-retired.
Yeah, I just didn't know kind of what my future had, really. I kind of walked away from playing competitively at the start of 2013, and it was at that time where my son was just about to start high school back here in New Zealand. I'd moved my family back to New Zealand because we wanted both kids to go to high school in New Zealand, be around family, and I would, with that time off that I'd had with the injuries, I dabbled in a few other different things business-wise, and they were really interesting to me, and so I just had different interests, and it was just at a different stage where I didn't really want to be away from home. I remember being in a kayak on Lake Taupo when my son was doing a triathlon, and I was out in the middle of the lake and trying to stay in it. Really, as parents, we were supposed to be out there and keeping an eye on kids and making sure that they were safe. But no, who was keep making sure that the parents were safe? And so I was concentrating on just staying upright in this kayak, because that wouldn't be a good look, that someone would have to come out and rescue a person that was supposed to be out there for the kids' safety. And I was supposed to be at a tournament in the Midwest at the time, in the States. I was in a tournament over there and chose not to go back to play in it. And I can't remember getting out of the water and surviving, and tell my wife that, yeah, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be, and so just kind of quietly walked away from playing competitively. If I couldn't practice, prepare how I wanted to try and play competitively, and my standard had dropped away most definitely. I wasn't playing as well as I wanted to, but if I couldn't prepare and get ready to play how I wanted to, then I'd quite happy just not play. And so yeah, I just kind of stepped away from playing and got into some of the other business things that that were occupying my time.
So 2014, you stepped back onto Tataurangi Beach. I assume that was after a considerable hiatus. I was away on a family holiday at the time, but I organised the game for you. And I still hadn't met you at that stage, but I remember getting a text message, would have been following your game, where you were glowing about the place. You'd forgotten how good the course was, how much you'd missed it. And you made particular mention at that point of the shot values and how good the shot values were at Tataurangi Beach. And I know you've morphed into design now. Perhaps you could maybe expand on that for our members.
Oh, really? You've saved this for now? Everyone's already tuned out, Leo, and now you want me to talk about Tataurangi Beach? Oh, where do we start? Yeah, look, it was a beautiful summer's day that we played down there. I think it was late January or something.
January. Yeah, about the third week in January, I think. Yeah.
And so, the sun was out and the turf was in great nick, and the golf course was dry and bouncy and fast. And I was playing with a couple of friends, and they, are not professional golfers by any stretch, but we just got to really enjoy the golf course. And look, links golf is best played when there's a wee breeze, and there was, look, I think if any of us had farted, that was most probably the only wind that we had to encounter for the day. It was just an absolutely beautiful day, and so it wasn't seeing Paraparaumu in all of its glory by any stretch, but it was an absolutely stunning day to take it all in. And look, you and your crew had already started, or been, you're midway through a big restoration project there of bringing the golf course back to its roots. And so I'd heard a little bit about that, and the social media wasn't a thing. It certainly wasn't for me. And so I'd heard a little bit about that, and wanted to kind of just come down and see how things had changed. And so, I really thoroughly enjoyed the day, Leo. The condition of the golf course I remember being fantastic, but that wasn't the thing that was most striking to me. I had stepped away from playing competition golf or tournament golf, and for the most part, the only times I'd played Paraparaumu Beach had been under tournament conditions. And so the rough was like this, and it was either in November or December, and so the wind was howling usually. and look, playing tournament golf is a totally different beast than playing the golf course how it's set up for members week in, week out. And so to play it on a beautiful day with some friends, I actually got to appreciate some of the golf holes when I didn't have to put a score on the scorecard. Right. And of course we had a game and there was a beer on the line or something like that. So it wasn't like we were dropping balls all over the show and playing different shots. But the short holes have always been my favourite at Tataurangi Beach. There's a couple of long holes there that are striking as well, and the 11th into a northerly is a beast, and 13 is long been held as the strongest or one of the strongest par fours, as is 17 into a southerly, right? But it's the shorter holes. It's the threes, all the threes. I know a lot of people. Is it Schoolyard? That's 14. What?
14. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people make special mention of that short hole as a par three, but 16 has always been my favourite three there. I know 5 is a brute and it's absolutely a beast. It's difficult. You can play ping pong there if things go awry. But 16's always been my favourite three there. But short holes like 6, like 8, and most definitely 10. All of those short 4s were fun holes where, because of the people I was playing with, you got to see what their capabilities were and the decisions that they were entertaining, because we weren't playing where you were battling the elements. It was every option for play was available to you because it was such a beautiful day. And then with being able to hit the ball a little bit further, the options and the decisions that I was considering. And so just being able to absorb all of that whilst we were playing and see the real value of the golf course was about as an enjoyable day as I could have expected to have. I can't remember what I shot. I really can't. And I can't remember. And it means absolutely nothing to me, actually, what I shot. It was more the enjoyment of being able to play the golf course, being able to play it with some friends, being able to feel like everyone could enjoy their day out because no task was unsurmountable. It was stimulating in a way that all of the shot values, as you mentioned, were available to all of us. Whether we pulled them off or whether we even attempted them was part of the experience. And I think the true genius of the way that the golf course was laid out, we got to experience some of that. I think I'd love to have gone back the next day and it been blowing 30 or 40 out of the south, and got to feel the bite a little bit. But it just brought back to me that for a golf course that's mostly, the overall, the quantum length of it has been passed by with the professional game, and how much the distance advancement has overtaken some of the shorter golf courses. To go back there and really take in some of those short holes and just the different angles of play, and when you're playing tournament golf back then, the Tataurangi Beach was always set up with a lot of thick rough, and so you were either on the fairway or you weren't on the fairway, and when you weren't on the fairway, a lot of the holes became incredibly stifled as to what options you had available to you to continue to play the hole. And so with the rough being just a little bit down, if you got offline, then the flyer came into play, the turf was firm and fast, you got yourself into trouble up around the green. And it was just one of the more memorable days I've had on a links golf course. And so you heard about it, I can tell you.
Well, I mean, it's been nice to share, and I think our members particularly will be taking real pride of sharing their course with others. Post-COVID and the lockdown, obviously we were sharing it with the world. And I think we were really looking forward to sharing that domestically and for more people like yourself to come and play us and experience what you may have experienced that day. So I think that's one of the opportunities for us, certainly over the next 12 or 18 or 24 months, however long we take before we get back to normal, so to speak.
Yeah, look, I think you guys are ideally placed for that. You've got a strong brand in New Zealand. People know the quality of the golf course, and you're an authentic New Zealand golf course experience, albeit a little bit different. And there's not too many links golf courses around New Zealand playing around the coastline or in the coastal dune. But from it's when you hear people talk about the quality of Tataurangi Beach being like the quality of the links of Britain. Unless you've gone over and played some of those golf courses, you maybe don't have a comparison. It's just a golf course with no trees on it versus the parkland golf courses that generally inhabit New Zealand. And so you maybe don't quite get to appreciate all the nuances of links golf and playing golf on the land as opposed to through the trees. And so I think that in itself is something that's quite unique. I think for New Zealanders, our borders are going to be closed for a little while, or it's going to be a little bit, an opportunity for us to stay at home. I think for members, there's going to be experiences that they're going to cherish a little bit more than maybe they had in the past, and that's catching up with their friends at their local golf club, where it's a lot more than just about playing the golf. And I've talked a lot about, and I really love the golf course and involved in golf course design and architecture, and enjoy that about the golf course. But I think for a number of golf courses in New Zealand, that social connection that they have, that hub that's been their workman's club, their where they catch up with their mates, they'll really cherish that and value that, and I guess there's an opportunity there for all golf clubs to play on that. Coming out the other side of this, we totally recognise that there are going to be some that have a tough time with that, and hopefully they get some support from the government to continue. But hopefully people get out and play some of the local golf courses around the country. Some of them are not quite as good as Tataurangi Beach, but they realise that we've got some quality golf right here on our own doorstep, and you don't need to jump on a plane to go and experience some of it.
Yeah, well said, Phil. At the back end of 2014, I found myself working at the Barclays tournament, the second round of the FedEx, whatever it was.
Yeah.
We'd only had exchanged that text message at that stage, and surging forward to the 18th, I saw the ever smooth Phil Tataurangi inside the ropes with a microphone reporting for the Golf Channel or a channel over there, and I had that split decision. Do I tap him on the shoulder and introduce Leo Barber from New Zealand, or do I let it slide and go, oh yeah, I remember seeing Phil, at the Barclays? So I quickly made the decision I was going to slip under the ropes, tap you on the shoulder, thrust out the hand, and introduce myself. And I remember you saying at that time you were very pleased that I did, and we had a little chat there beside the 18th green, and you'd said at that stage that you were mentoring, or you probably still do mentor a number of different people. And one of the advices that you were giving them was to throw a hand out, because you never know where that might lead to. And it's been an absolute privilege today to have thrown that hand out, and it's led to a phone interview and obviously a friendship of sorts since 2000. So Phil, I just want to say, hey, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you giving up your time today.
Yeah, no worries, Leo. And look, I've enjoyed following your career after getting to know you a little bit better as well, because you and your brethren as turf maintenance guys and girls throughout the country most really don't get the the kudos that they deserve, and you've got a passion for it. Clearly you do, and I know everyone at the golf club realises that, and everyone on your teams throughout the years have felt that, and the golf course is reflective of that passion. But as we've gone through this and we've had to confront, how do our golf courses actually get prepared week in, week out, when members turn up on Saturday and want the greens running just how they want them to, and there to be no divots in the fairways, and the fairways to be tightly clipped, and everything just to be right for them because they turn up on Saturdays. I think going through this, Leo, hopefully members also get a new appreciation for the greenkeepers and for superintendents and for the maintenance staff at the golf courses. For everyone that's been hurting at home, not being able to play the game, I can assure you all the greenkeepers have been hurting too, that they haven't been able to get out on their patch, right? And so thank you to the government that they've allowed there to be not too big a break between being able for the greenies to be able to get back out and prepare golf courses. But hopefully those people that are listening to this, they take the time to go and have a yarn with their greenkeeper and all of your staff there at Tataurangi Beach. But if this gets shared to other golfers around the country, take the time next time you see a greenie at your course, go and extend the hand like you did, and thank them for the job they do, because in lots of respects it's thankless, but just about every case it's the passion that greenies have for their job that go into what surface people get to play on every weekend when they tear it up. And so to you and your staff there at Tataurangi Beach, I hope everyone gets back on and the golf course is in good nick. It looks like it is from the photos that you've been posting, but thank you for you and what you do for golf in the country there. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, Phil. Kind words. Take care in your bubble, and I look forward to hopefully welcoming you back to Tataurangi Beach when this is all through, and we can get out there and have that fun again that you were talking about back in 2014.
It'll happen, mate. It'll happen. Keep your phone on.
Good on you, Phil. Catch you later.
Thanks,